Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour and I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, one of the civic partners for our show. I want to welcome James Galasinski and Ginger Storey-Welch back to the show this week to discuss the Fall Social Justice Conference and related events coming up in September and October in Canton at the Unitarian Universalist Church. James, you've been our guest before to talk about the two previous social justice events. And Ginger, you're also a returning guest who has talked with us before about environmental and climate concerns. I am delighted to have both of you back this year to talk about this year's Social Justice Conference, which looks like it's going to be a terrific event with a lot going on over the course of several weeks. So, James, why is social justice a central tenet of the Unitarian mission?
Well, actually, our mission statement, is social justice is central to us. We are creating a welcoming, compassionate faith community committed to social justice and open to wonder. Spirituality, I think, requires some sort of behavioral change and action. And prayers are great, and meditation is great, but not enough, I think. Ours is a liberatory faith where we find all people worthy of love and all life worthy to be flourishing. And that means future life, future humans too. And social justice and climate change, I think, are intimately connected. They're not one or the other. They're both sides of the same coin. Climate change and will affect humans, especially historically marginalized communities.
Yep, and so this is the third of your biennial social justice initiative conferences. So what was the genesis for social justice conferences in your congregation?
Is it me again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, James. Yes, it is you again. Sorry.
Again, I want to thank Paul Siskin and Todd Moe for the kind of idea and also the generosity to make this happen. And all these events we're going to talk about today are free and open to the public. And we did a survey in the church and tried to find out what issues are of most importance. And really, like, two things rose to the top, and that was really like poverty in the North Country and climate change. And some of us got together and like, these aren't opposites necessarily, these are connected. And myself and Ginger and three other people, we formed really a team. No one is like the king or queen of the group. We work by consensus, and we really came up with all of these things by connections we already have in the community and just working as a team.
Thank you. So climate change and extreme weather events are in the news every day, from heat waves to hurricanes, wildfires, and tornadoes, etc. At least 5 large U.S. property insurers have told regulators that extreme weather patterns are caused by climate change, and that they're going to stop writing coverage in some regions as a result. They're going to exclude protections from various weather events, and they're going to raise monthly premiums and deductibles. So that's real world evidence that this is happening, and it's so serious that business is taking notice of it. And the Federal Emergency Management Agency's ability to fund disaster recovery is also in doubt for the remainder of this year because there have been so many declared disasters already. So the timing of your conference could not be more fortuitous to get folks thinking about what climate justice is, because every one of us is actually going to be suffering the results of climate change and these extreme events. So Ginger, what is the theme of this year's event? James has told us a little bit about how you came together to think about it, but explain what Cultivating Climate Justice is going to look like.
Well, I would just say that our series of events is actually an antidote to everything that you just said, because that kind of information tends to overwhelm us it's very discouraging, it's frightening and things like that. And our message, our intention is to send hope to people and to give people practical ways to address climate change and to understand it and to find ways to join with others. So it's really about empowering people, not overwhelming them with more bad information. It's really, there's a lot of good information, and it's, we use the term celebration, and there is celebration, and there is honoring the earth and things like that. So it's really about instilling hope.
And I know this is something you've been doing for many, many years. You started during your teaching career with your students, and you've continued this work since your retirement as a volunteer. So I think your message about hope and that people can make positive changes in their own lives that are going to have a good effect on the earth is a great one. So
yeah, and I would also say that in the midst of all these other things, we also have New York has more electric vehicles than it ever has. It's like I think I read 165,000 electric vehicles in the state. And the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act both have a significant boost to environmental issues. So there are a lot of good things going on as well. And we tend to hear about the bad, but there are a lot of good things going on as well.
You're exactly right. So, James, the whole climate justice scenario that you are all working on kicks off with a series of 3 films. So tell us a little bit about what those films are and how people can view them in preparation to come to the main event, which is actually going to be in October.
Yeah, so taking a step back, in past iterations of our social justice initiative, we kind of had a big weekend, a Friday evening, all day Saturday, and kind of a celebratory worship service on Sunday. And we just had so many ideas and so many positive people that are doing such great work that we thought we can't highlight this and do justice to this issue with just a weekend. So we really wanted to look at it as a series of events, and it really kicks off September 15th. We're going to be showing a short film called Arctic Summer. It shows an indigenous communities last summer before they have to relocate because of climate change. And it's a short video, and we have some speakers lined up, including Aaron Mayer, who is former president of the Sierra Club, my understanding, the first African-American to be president of the Sierra Club, who lives in upstate New York and is just like a wonderfully gifted speaker and just full of energy and enthusiasm. And we're so glad that he's going to be in person with us to speak after the film. And so, the second film, which is on September 22nd, is about a group of farmers in Africa who are directly experiencing the effects of climate change. And they actually come to the US to see if they can influence some of the policy changes here. And it's really the narrative of that experience where they meet some people that don't think climate change is happening, et cetera, et cetera. And the really cool thing is that one of the environmental science professors at St. Lawrence University has worked with this group and has been to Malawi and knows these people. So he's going to be there, speaking about his experience with some real practical farming techniques that have worked in Malawi. Oh, and then the third film it's called Uprooting Racism, Seeding Sovereignty. And it really highlights the work of Soulfire Farm, which is a Afro-Indigenous farm in upstate New York that reconnects people of color to the land and is all about getting people back to producing food themselves. And we also have a speaker that's going to be coming in to speak about that as well.
And all 3 of those movies on those sequential Friday nights are all at the church, correct? So people will come there and it will be a group experience. Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
7 to 9 p.m.
Yes, thank you. I will make sure to put all the links in the show notes as I edit this film. Ginger, another event coming up before the weekend is the Readers Theater on Friday, September 29th and Saturday, September 30th. Tell us more about the speaker and what that will entail, if you would, please.
Well, it's a play by a Readers Theater by Karen Wells, who has frequently done skits and things like that locally. And it's a celebration of the beauty of the earth and how it sustains us. It feeds us, it gives us air, everything. And it's about making choices. We can choose to continue down a path of destruction, or we can choose to take a more proactive way of healing the earth. So it's about choices. Which do you want? And I should imagine it'll be very effective, and it involves music and things like that.
Oh, it sounds fascinating. James, there's also a book discussion that you have set up for Sunday, October 8th. So what will folks be reading, and how will that discussion be managed?
So there's a book that the congregation is going to read, and this is, of course, open to the wider community as well. It's a book entitled When Time is Short, and it's by Timothy Beale. He is a religious scholar that teaches at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland. And he teaches classes on ecology and religion. In this book that we're going to be discussing, which I just actually finished reading a few days ago, it is phenomenal. And in many ways, it blew my mind. It kind of brought me back to seminary. It's just full of good ideas and personal stories. But one idea from the book, though, is that sort of Western capitalism and colonialism is based on this sort of like European exceptionalism, American exceptionalism, sometimes even white exceptionalism, human exceptionalism. And he points out that traditionally this has been apology, a scriptural apology from Genesis, the one that talks about being fruitful and multiplying and filling the earth, subduing it and having dominion over it. That has been like a text that has been used to as an apology for this kind of human exceptionalism. And he's saying, even within the Christian and Jewish traditions, there are other ways and other creation stories and other more earth-based ways to look at things. He talks about that we're all earth creatures. Of course, there's that account in Genesis of God forming the human out of ground, out of soil, and breathing into it. We're all from the earth. We have a common ancestry. And that human, we have to like think that we're humble, we have humility, and that we share this life with all the other creatures and beautiful species around us. And the other thing I'll say quickly is he talks. He takes a real kind of theological, in-depth look at like the possibility that our species may die off. Maybe not in 80 years, maybe in 800 years, but at some point, our species is probably going to die off. And what does that mean for us? How do we live now, knowing that that's a real possibility? So he brings up this real kind of ethical and moral position. And this book discussion, by the way, Timothy Beale is going to be coming via Zoom to meet at the church, and it's going to be just him on Zoom, and the rest of us in person. We'll be able to answer questions, and he'll be able to explain some more things. And the great thing, and maybe this is a segue to next points too, is he's also going to be there in person for the October 14th Saturday. He's one of the key speakers and is going to lead a portion of that. So we're excited to have him.
Yeah, and that when you were talking about that, it makes me think about how Native cultures and their origin stories and how they approach living with the earth instead of on the earth and taking from it, and how important that is, and how those kinds of Native responses are really healing in many, many ways, as opposed to the way that white culture has a tendency to strip mine the earth rather than, be responsible to it and responsive to it.
And like for me, like I think our earth-centered spirituality and indigenous wisdom sort of informs who I am. And Timothy Beale kind of just reminds us that, you know, this sort of thing is in the Western tradition too. It's just been ignored.
Right, right. So everything that we've talked about is all going to culminate on the final weekend when everything is going on at the church. So, James, tell us what the Friday night is going to look like that night of the 13th, when the theme is honoring our Earth.
Yeah. So, in short, it's going to be an evening full of guests from Akwesasne. So there's going to be the Akwesasne singers that are going to be performing, and Chief Tom Porter is going to be speaking, and we're going to end with a simple Three Sisters dinner. You know, we're going to have we're going to eat together, and maybe Ginger would want to say a little bit more about this, but we think that this is going to build community, and again, free and open to the public.
Right. Yeah, and I would add that Sakowinyanguas, Tom Porter, plans to deliver the Mohawk words before all else, sometimes known as the Thanksgiving address, but that's our term for it, not theirs. And it's a very beautiful addressing the different parts of the natural world and honoring them. And then he's also going to share a traditional story that shows us how to live. And when he told me about that, he said that it's a way of living that we forget quite often. And then we also have the Akwesasne women singers that will be coming and doing some traditional dancing and music as well. And Sakowinyanguas is also going to talk about the meaning behind the Three Sisters as part of the Three Sisters soup dinner that we will be having, you know. So it should be a very deeply meaningful evening.
It sounds like it. So there are a lot of events that are planned for Saturday, Ginger. So talk to us a little bit about who some of the guest speakers are, what the workshops are, how is that day going to be organized for the attendees?
I'm very excited about how we're doing this, because one thing we did not want to do is just have a whole bunch of informative things that kind of dull the brain after a while. It's going to be a real interweaving of stories, music, poetry, information, interactive activities that help people come up with ways that they can help and things like that. So, and you know, Timothy Beale, as James mentioned, will be giving the keynote that day, and Dan Bergeron is doing music. I have a very dear friend whose passion is getting people to plant flowers that are native flowers that are beneficial to the local pollinators, and she's going to do something on that. And what I love about that is that that's something that a lot of us can do. You know, I you know, going to the nursery and picking out this flower versus that flower is something that we can all do, and it's very beneficial. I love seeing the pollinators around my flowers since I met Catherine, you know. And we're going to have an earth-friendly lunch, and on the tables there will be some interactive activities. There will be, you know, Dr. Eric Backus from Clarkson and Dr. Susan Powers will both be doing presentations in the afternoon about local vulnerabilities and NIMBYism. You know, I want to address climate change, but oh, I don't want this in my backyard, kind of a thing. We're going to address that. And there's a TED Talk that is inspirational in terms of promoting personal action and things like that. But it should be a wonderful day. I'm really looking forward to it. And there are also things that are involved with children, and that they can both participate. And then there's also childcare as well.
So that's really important, because it sounds like there's a lot of really great takeaways from that, and that it'll help people to make those positive changes in their life that will make a positive difference in the wider society. And that is, as you mentioned at the beginning of this, that's where the hope and celebration comes in, and the empowerment. So it sounds like a really, really great day, full of empowering activities and some fun too, from the sounds of it. So James, you'll be co-leading the worship service on Sunday. So how will that continue and sort of wrap up the theme of this long series of events that are all part of the climate justice movement that you're working on?
Yeah, we kind of look at this as sort of a celebration of our earth, of our sacred earth, and this unity that we all have with the earth. And the Chief Tom Porter will be speaking. I'll be doing a few things, and Dan Bergren will be playing music, who's just a wonderful sort of folk musician that has finds a lot of spirituality in nature. And that's, I think, where a lot of our, well, at least I am, but a lot of our congregants are in that kind of space too. So we're really excited about that. And immediately following the service, there's going to be time for local groups to kind of table in our church to kind of say, hey, you want to get involved? Here's a way to get involved. And then we're actually going to end that day with a farmers roundtable. We want to hear from local farmers. We want to hear what experiences they're having with climate change. And we just want to be more supportive and partner and learn directly from them.
Well, and we have some really great local CSA members and folks who always come to various Saturday events and parks and what all. So that'll be really interesting as well, I think. So Ginger, let's talk a little bit about how people can participate, because there's a lot going on. Do you need to pre-register for any of these events, or is it come as you can? How is this going to work in terms of you being able to have some idea about how to accommodate the people coming to the various events?
We have 2 meals going on, both on Friday night and also lunch on Saturday. So having some numbers would be very helpful. If we have 50 people versus 100 people, that makes a difference in terms of how much food we order. And yes, we do, on our website, we do have a place to pre-register. If I could, I would like to add one more thing about the Sunday service. Sakuganyangua's Tom Porter will also be joining James that day. And it's traditional in the Haudenosaunee culture that the words before our else, or the Thanksgiving address, are kind of like bookends. They begin an event and they also end the event. So we will be doing that again, but he's going to introduce it in a sermon and talk about it. And then we will be doing it as individuals, because there's a lot of concern about cultural appropriation and things like this. But this is one thing that they want for us to take on. They want for us to take on the Thanksgiving address of offering thanks to the trees and offering thanks to the air and offering thanks to the creatures and everything else, because it's something we don't do often enough. And they would love for us to take it on. So it's a gift to us. So we are going to model us doing it with his introduction. So I think that should also be a very meaningful thing as well.
Oh, that sounds so fascinating. Absolutely. So James, as we begin to wrap up here, give us your little 2-minute elevator speech about who should attend the climate justice events and what they will get out by participating. It sounds like, from the way you've described it, everybody's going to come away with something. And some people, depending on how much time they can actually devote, are going to come away with a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, this event is open to everyone and all ages. We're actually doing having some childcare available on the Saturday. I think it's anyone that wants to get involved more, learn a little bit more. But like Ginger said, we deliberately wanted to have some sort of spiritual, for lack of a better word, spiritual quality to this, that it's just that there is going to be some type of hope. It may not be the hope, I don't know, you want or something, but it's going to be a type of, sometimes we need to grieve to go through hope. to get to hope. And there are things that I think we are going to lose out on. I mean, story from my own life. I mean, I was having my wife and I were having a discussion with my 8-year-old Miles, and last winter, and he was just saying, well, I really like snow. He really loves winter. And how come there's less snow? And we were kind of explaining to him that the trend may be that we're going to have less snow, and it might be more rain and less snow in it. And he started crying, like, I felt kind of like helpless in that situation as a parent. You want to like protect and guide and all this stuff. And there's a certain amount of loss we are all going to experience to lesser or shorter degrees. But I think as we get together locally in a community and build relationship, connect with each other, I think that can kind of restore some of our hope, and we can celebrate our interdependence, and we can center marginalized voices, especially indigenous wisdom, because I believe we all want a livable climate for ourselves, for our families, for our friends, and for the future of all life. And we are united in one earth, and we want to bring more awareness of that.
That is a great message, and I appreciate you articulating it so clearly, because it's something certainly I've observed over the course of my life, is how when I was a child, the winters I experienced up here, and although I must say I had plenty of snow then, I'm not sure I miss it as much as perhaps Miles does. But still in all, when we see these changes and they're beyond our control, we do feel that sense of loss. We feel that sense of gosh, what's going to happen next? Every time someone says it's a 100-year storm, I think, well, yeah, until next week when we have the next 100-year storm, because those events are so compacted now. They're not rare at all. And it is something that is troubling. And if there are things that we can come away with from an event like this and feel some sense of empowerment and how we can help, even in a small individual way, that's a very good thing. So I appreciate so much you and Ginger coming today to talk about this, and hopefully a lot of people will take part in whatever they can take part in over this series of events that you have planned, and take away as much as possible in a positive way, because you certainly have structured it as an event that will empower people. So thank you both very much. So these conversations are a production of North Country Matters. This show is a civic collaboration between the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters and the Potsdam Public Library. Until next time, remember, our North Country matters.